Okay, so let's talk about prototype. And interviewer might ask you something like, okay, explain prototype chaining, or they can ask you explain prototype inheritance. They can form this question in like different way, but in the end they uh, are expecting from you that whether you know how JavaScript works internally. That's what their intentions is behind that question. Okay, so let's try to understand what prototype and prototype chaining and prototype inheritance looks like and why do we even need it basically. Okay, so first let's start from the prototype. Well, theoretically, if I have to explain you, prototype is like a property and an object that every object has access to. What does it mean? Well, every object has this property called prototype, and it's an object that store all the shared methods, properties, and link to next prototype. Whatever we want to other objects to be shared, we can store into that prototype. And the reason we do it because it's memory efficient without copying them. Because otherwise we would have to copy everything. I will explain you with an example of what do I mean. But think of it like prototype is a property that every object has access to. What does it do? Well, it stores all the methods, all the properties that we want to share to other objects, or we can store it there basically. Okay, this is prototype. And what does it looks like? So let's try to understand what does it looks like and what do I mean by all of these things. So for that, let's go to the browser and have you ever worked with array? So how do you make array? Let array, and then we do this sign. This is array, right? Nothing expensive, nothing fancy, right? But watch this. When I do array dot, you see all of these methods, every fill, find index. Where do you think these object like methods are coming from? Because we did not write them. They are coming from class. But in JavaScript, like there's no class and all. It's just every function or method you see here, it is stored into that prototype. And if you don't believe me, let me show you. You can access to it by underscore proto underscore. When you enter, you will see all the methods and properties. As you can see here, all the methods and all the property that I was showing you. When we do dot, it has access to all of this. This is where it get stored. So whenever we create array, so what basically we are doing is uh, we are trying to access array dot find. When you say that, so it will look into the prototype property. So this is what prototype object that I was saying property looks like, and you can access it by this. This is where all the shared property that I was saying, all the shared property and methods, we can store it here so that other objects can also use them, right? So this is what prototype property looks like. Now learn about something called prototype chaining. This is interesting. As I said, this array.proto has is a property which is like an object which store all the methods, right? But this object also has a prototype. And if you go down here, one by one, here, I hope you can see it, right? So this is look at this is also an object which is a prototype property, which is a prototype, and it also has these method constructor and has own properties, all of this thing. And if you go down here, you also see one more proto. So you go click on that and you expand this, and this also has one of more like a prototype, and same method constructor has one property, all of this happening going, and you see one more proto, and this is null. So this is looks like a this is not looks like, this is what we call prototype chaining. See how many prototype object we had. One which is like a top level, by the way. We say if we end up seeing here, which means we have to on the like top of the prototype chaining, or on the bottom you can say whatever you want, but this is like a base level. And then one above, this is proto, which we started from here, right? Second level, and this third level. So we have three prototype properties which every object has. As I said, every object has its own prototype property. So this proto is object, as you can see here. It has also its own prototype property, which is here. This also has some methods and all, and this object also has prototype property. which store another object, and this object also has prototype, which is by the way null, which means now there's no further going from here. So this is what it looks like, prototype chaining. And the useful thing about is that when we call array dot some method, like for example when I do array dot find, so what basic sorry array dot find, so what basically it does is it tries to find this find method into this array class, basically array object. Now let me show you with an example in code. So when I say this say hello function, what it try to do is, who's calling p2, does p2 has this say hello method. So this is how it gets created. And yes, if we log hit p2, you will see that we have this name property and say hello function, right? So basically we are saying, so in this object we found that p2 object has this say hello method, so it will call directly from here. If for some reason I called this method like sfdsf, let's just say for some, I don't know, for some reason, so what it will do is, instead of giving immediately error, what it will do is it will check whether this object has this method who is calling p2. So does p2 object has this method say hello? So for example we can see that it does not. So what it will do, it will go to its prototype property and it will try to see there, just like this. Like I'm showing you an example, it will do something like array dot underscore underscore proto underscore underscore, it will go here and it will see whether this method that we are trying to call exists here. So it will look into this that object, not into array object, this is a different object. So it will look into that array's prototype and it will not find that, it's not find. Then it will go its parents, like this prototype's object also, and it will check, does this exist? No. Here no, doesn't exist. So then it will see this proto, it will go inside that also, then it will see whether that method exists here also. No, it's not. Then it will go here, but here it will see that null object, null value, which means we have looked into our prototype chain from the object itself to its parent to its parent to its parent to top level till the null value, meaning null is the top level object in JavaScript. So we have looked till that and we did not find that method into its prototype property, prototype object basically. So then it will give us error that if I run it, it will say that SDSS is not a function. So this is what prototype chaining looks like, where JavaScript trying to find the method into its prototype objects. It will keep going until it end up on the null object, which is a top level object. All right. So this is what prototype chaining looks like. Now let me show you uh, what prototype inheritance looks like. No, but let me show you why do we even need it, like prototype. What does it do? It what problem it's solving? Let's try to understand that. Okay. So when we create objects using this method, like this person constructor, so what happening in that is that, let's just log this one into p1 and first let me just comment it out. So you will see that this say hello function is getting copied 2 times. Now name variable, we can understand that name will be different for each object, right? Or it won't be different, but you get the idea that name might be different for like each person. But the say hello function's job is simple, like it's literally function is same. So this function is same, we did not change anything in that, but still we are copying into the memory. So it's a memory's wastage, and that is why I said the reason we have prototype is because so that we can save memory and store, like use efficiently the memory. So this is where prototype comes handy. And how do we solve this problem, like so that we can use the hello but we don't repeat it? So this is where we do that. What are method, shared method? Remember I said in prototype we store the shared methods and properties. So we know that this say hello function is shared, which will be shared by every object. So what we will do, we will take this method, and as I said, everything in JavaScript is an object. So even function also are object. So what we will do is we will do this person dot prototype dot say hello. Basically this is how we store that property into object, right? If you remember, like dot notation. So into that prototype we want to store this say hello function, and this is the definition of say hello function. So what now will happen is that when I try to log, something interesting will happen. Here we don't see say hello function anymore into these objects. We are creating object using this new person same, but we don't see that person here. But interesting thing is that even if I do this now, say hello, I will be able to do that. Say hello meaning who is calling P1, and P1 is Ajay. So P1, so it should say hello Ajay, and as you can see hello Ajay is printing. Still it's accessing them, even though in this object we don't have that say hello function. So how is it working? Well, remember I told you about prototype chaining. First it try to look say hello into this P1 object, which is this. It will look whether this say hello method exists into this object itself. No, it doesn't. So what it will do, it will look into that it's a prototype. How do we have access to that? Well, I told you that p1 dot underscore underscore proto underscore underscore. If I log that, you will see that it contains say hello method. So it will try to look into this prototype object, whether this is where it exists. Yes, then it will call it and it will print it. If it didn't find here, then it will go one more further by doing dot underscore underscore proto. This will keep doing until the prototype value is null. So it will keep doing and keep finding whether in this object exists the method that we are trying to call. Okay, so this is how it's able to do that, and this is handy. And the interesting thing is this hello method is only created once in the memory here. That's it, and we can able to use it into multiple objects so that we saved the memory. So this is the best use case of prototype, and this is prototype chaining. Through prototype chaining we are able to access it. So now I can do this p2 also without, and it will be able to say hello Ajay, hello Vijay, hello Ajay, hello Vijay. This is how it's happening. Again it's checking into this object whether do we have say hello method here. No, we don't. So it will go to its parent prototype object, and it will look here, and they will find the say hello because we stored into this person's prototype say hello method, right? So it will find there. So it will take that method here, it will call it on this p2 object, and this p2 will be point to this, and this dot name in the p2 is Vijay. So there will be hello Vijay, right? I hope you are able to understand this thing. Okay, this is how this prototype chaining and prototype work. Now let's try to understand prototype inheritance. Okay, that is interesting. So let me clear this for you first. And now it's good and all, but what we can do is, now let's just say let me remove it. Name and say hello and good. Now what do we do is, let me make an constructor function user, and I want to use this person. Why do I want to use? Because a person will have a name hello, and it will be using that method. Like for some reason, this user function, that constructor function that I am making, this object will be having this same functionality. I mean, it will also have the extra functionality like logged in. Let's just, for some reason I have this logged in property, which is true by default. Okay, so we have this functionality, but we know that I need this name and say hello. Now obviously in this example you might say, Ajay, we can just create this name duplicate here, like I can just create this dot name here also. Sure, you can do it, but I'm just trying to show you the inheritance where we want to inherit some other object into other object. This is what inheritance means, right? So that we are able to inherit from other objects. And in this example it doesn't make sense, it's a very simple example, but you will get the idea that how do we access uh, different objects, methods and properties into different object. So here for some, let's just assume that in this user we are going to be needing this name say hello method and this name property, and we don't want to repeat it. So we can use them because we know that we have this into our code and we want to use it. So how do we do it? That's the question. Okay, so what we will do is, again we will use the prototype. So what we need is, into this users prototype, again we can use it like in a, we can store it in some property also, but we don't want to do it. Remember the prototype property that every object has. When whatever we store there, it will be stored only once in the memory. So we want to efficiently use that. So what we can do is user dot prototype. We can do that also, but we don't. The reason is because these both will be represent, like this is how object works, right? If I do this, what am I doing it is that I'm referencing the address of this prototype object. So if I change here next, like for example when I go here and if I do certain change into this prototype, then it will be changed into person's constructor also, and that is what we don't want to do it, because we want to, the inheritance, the way inheritance work is, we want to use this functionality into this, not this functionality into that. Okay, so we want to say that we want to use this functionality, and we can also add custom functionality into user also. So we don't, so that's why we need to create another object, and the reason, the way we do it is object dot create creat, and we want to create that object based on this person dot prototype. I hope you know how does this work, right? It will create a new object like fresh object, and it will store into the prototype. So now whatever method and property that this person has, we have stored into the user prototype. So if I log and go and check, I will be able to see those into name and say hello method into the prototype, and I can use it also whenever I make a variable, right? So for example, let me construct new const users and new user, and let's just pass name here. Name will be Ajay, and let's take name here, and now we are passing name here. So let me just call this person class, and the reason I'm doing call, let me explain you this, and let me pass the name. The reason I'm doing it because I need to use say hello, and say hello need this dot name. So if you don't assign, if you don't call this, so which means this object was never created. So when we try to access say hello, it will give us undefined, that this node name doesn't exist. So we want to call this person also into this user. Okay, so this is how we can call customize label by using call method, where this will be binded to this u. All right, so that's what we are doing here, and this person will initialize this constructor function, which will initialize this dot name property, so that when we access say hello, it will be able to understand, okay, this dot name is where do this dot name is coming from. All right, so when I do this u dot say hello, I should be able to say hello Ajay. Although remember, I did not created say hello in here into this user constructor, but I created the object based on that. But what I did is I stored into user prototype is that person prototype object. An entire object I stored into user prototype. So what does that mean? And what is into the person's prototype? Remember, say hello method. All right. So let's see. So I have stored into the user prototype, and I know that for a fact that inside a prototype I only have to store it only once, and it will not waste the memory. So now when I say u.hello, it will check into this object, meaning into this object, that is there this hello method exist. It will say no, it doesn't exist. So it will go into its prototype here, and it will see whether their say hello method exists, and we will be able to see that yes, there this prototype method exists, sorry, this say hello method exists. So it will call it, and boom, let me just say 1 2 3, and hello Ajay is printed. I didn't know. So this is, we are using this methods property, sorry, this constructor functions property and methods into this constructor, sorry, this constructor method. I did not, now we extra also we added extra functionality like logged in. So I can, of course, I can access that logged in, and I can log it here. I can add custom methods also here, or I can do here prototype dot is logged in, and this will be method. I can do all of the like extra functionality I can add, and here I can say log I will say this dot is logged in this property return whatever the value is. So I can here say is logged in. I can call is logged in method. So this is logged in will be found into this prototype, and I can but when I should so well first let's check true undefined hello. Sorry, I don't have to log because it's not returning anything. So you can say true and hello j because the property is set to true. If I make it false, it will be false. So we added this method logged in into this user prototype, but let me show you with an example that const p1 is equal to new person, and that is Vijay. P1 dot is logged in won't we find if I call is logged in onto this P1 which is created based on this person. So we can say that this is how inheritance works, right? Because this is logged in exists only on this user constructor, but on not on this person's uh, prototype or anywhere on this prototype chain it won't find there. So it should give us error because this is how it should work, right? Parents property and methods we want to use into child, not child's methods and property parents should have access to. So what we are trying to have this method is child's method for in this example, right? Because this is what we did into users prototype. We stored persons dot prototype, which means whatever the methods and property that has person has, we stored into that prototype users prototype, and we additionally add this is logged in method only to the user prototype. So it should, but we are creating object onto the based on this information person's constructor using person's constructor, and we did not we don't want this is loading to get access to that, and so it should give us error. So 1 2 3, and it is giving us error. It printed our pul is logged is not a function because what it did, it tried to look into this p1 object which is based on creating this into this, that whether there exist is logged in method. No, it doesn't. So it will go into this its prototype which will come here. So it will see is there is logged in method exist. No, it doesn't. So it will go it's also prototype. There will it try to find whether there exist or not, and it won't find anywhere till the null value come, and then it's giving us the error, and that is what we wanted, right? So that is what inheritance looks like, where we inherited person's methods into this users method users constructor. This is how we should do it, and if you explain this much to the interviewer, I'm sure they will be pretty much happy. They will know okay, this person knows. I'm sure this is not the most optimal way to do it, by the way, but you get the idea of that how do we manipulate it, what does it mean to inheritance prototype, for what reason we use it, because it's memory efficient. If we store whatever there will be only one instance of that, and we can utilize it into all the objects. All right, so that is it about your prototype chaining and prototype inheritance.